Well, today I'm out and about on this cloudy day, late February, coming into March, and I'm scouting out a location for my new beehives. I have two new colonies of carniolans arriving this spring, and I've prepared some Langstroth hives. For the past 5 years, I've kept only top bar hives, and I've decided to move into Langs because of the top bars just being a bit of a hassle, especially here in the Pacific Northwest where feeding is potentially going to be a requirement. But I do have a hive going right now. That's a top bar hive that has survived over the winter, surprisingly. And I have a video that I show some of the activity at the entrance of that hive. But anyway, today the goal is to find a good spot to place my two new hives. Things to consider are being up out of any valleys where cold air would settle. So that kind of eliminates the bottom half of the property. Number two, a good thing to consider is sort of a fairly dry spot, so not too much moisture accumulates underneath and creates damp conditions for the bees. That's obviously not easy to do in the Pacific Northwest, but I think I have found a spot that's fairly dry. Even now, if you look around right where I am, you can see that there is a location here where there's a spring that runs through this portion of the property, and this spring exists all the way until around June, and then it goes subsurface. Then it goes subsurface and it continues to flow. But I've planted trees along that spring, but I don't want to set my bees there. So just slightly off from that is a fairly dry spot. So number three, you want to think about the wind, where the prevailing winds tend to blow from, and you don't want the opening of the hive to face into that direction of wind. You want to sort of point that opening away from the wind. So I've come up here amongst a stand of Douglas fir trees with the intent of placing the hives up here in this somewhat protected area. And then the fourth thing I'm thinking about is the sun. I want my bees to be woken up with that morning light as early as possible to get them out and active. The sun does help wake them up because of its warmth, and also bees are conditioned by the sun, and a lot of their working day is about the sunrise. So I've placed it here, overlooking a location where sun comes up here in the east, comes across the sky, and then sets over here in the west. The whole point is these bees will get a lot of sunshine on a regular basis. So anyway, I'm going to show you kind of how I prep this location and get it ready. Alright, so I've leveled this location and now I have put these blocks on top, mostly just to create a draft, somewhat of a draft, to keep moisture problems under control, and then also just to keep these hives off the ground so that they don't rot. But it also puts them at a nice level when working on the supers and inspecting the hives. So the first thing to go down is what I have. It's the bottom board. This is a screened bottom board. This is to help with varroa mite control. Varroa mite is a pretty big problem these days. This doesn't necessarily eliminate the problem, but it certainly minimizes the problem. My goal is to do as little treatment as possible. The next layer is the first of 2 brood boxes. I'm going to do 2 brood boxes. You can get by with just 1 brood box, but I've decided to go with 2 because I want to really ensure that these guys have a lot of food going into winter. And as we know, a bee colony's primary objective in life is to store food for the winter, because survival of the winter is their biggest challenge in life. So this is a 10 bar brood box. Next thing to go down is the second brood box. These guys just line up. These were all purchased from Dadant Bee Supply. They are fantastic, by the way, I have to say. I'm a beginner when it comes to these Langstroths, and they gave me all kinds of great advice. So, next thing is the inner cover. The inner cover is nice because you can put feeders on top of this, and you can feed directly from the top. As you may know, bees tend to migrate upwards and downwards, not laterally. So you want to provide a food source above them, because you can put a food source all the way to one end, and if the bees don't know it's there, they won't find it. So putting food on top ensures that they're going to find that food source. Then you have this telescoping cover, which is very nice, has a aluminum top, keeps the rain out. And that's hive number 1. I've decided to face the hives in opposing directions for 2 reasons. One, prevailing winds tend to blow from down below up through here, so I don't want the openings to face into the wind. And then the other reason is it makes it really handy when when inspecting the hives, because I can stand right next to them without standing in front of them, and I can access both hives without having to move much. So as you can see, this is a pretty nice height. So then it's just a matter of putting the next one in place. It's a little wobbly right now, but I'll just use some shims to level that all off. So again, I put down the screened bottom board, followed by the first brood box. And something I'll point out is that I'm using foundation, and this foundation I didn't use wired or string to support it. It's a really strong, seemingly strong foundation. We'll see, I could be totally wrong, but I think that's going to support the weight of extracted comb and all the brood. So I'm not really sure how to space these, quite honestly. So I'm gonna space them towards the middle. I've seen some people spread them out equally and space them like this, but I believe that the bee space that's being provided by these sides is actually enough to is what it's been designed to do. So I'm just going to smash it together and allow a little extra space on the sides. All right, the next one. Again, there's foundation in there. These are total virgin hives, never been touched by a single bee. Now, what would be really cool is if a swarm decided to move in. Because as we know, spring is the time when swarms develop, and it's not unheard of for a swarm to move into a hive. My bees are set to arrive after April 15th, so we'll see what happens. Okay, there you have it.